Welcome to our explainer. Today, we're tackling one of the biggest, most challenging ideas in modern history, Jean-Jacques Rousseau's The Social Contract. We're going to break down his incredible answer to a fundamental question: how can we be both ruled by a state and, at the same time, truly free?
So let's just jump right in with Rousseau's absolutely explosive opening line. I mean, wow. This isn't just some catchy phrase. It's a massive paradox, and it sets the stage for everything that follows. It really makes you stop and think, if freedom is our natural state, our birthright, how on earth did we all end up living under systems of authority and rule?
And right there, that is the central question he sets out to answer. You know, what's interesting is he isn't really trying to be a historian here. He's not that focused on how we got into chains. He wants to know what, if anything, could possibly make those chains legitimate. What gives any government, any authority at all, the right to rule over people who were born free?
So what he's really searching for is a principle, a foundation for legitimate rule. And he immediately throws out the idea that this social order is somehow natural. He says no, it has to be founded on conventions, on agreements between people. So let's see which common justifications for authority he just tears down right from the start.
All right, so where does he begin? Well, he goes right for the oldest excuse in the book, the idea that might makes right. This is his first target.
First, he just completely dismisses the idea that political authority is natural. You know, some people back then argued it's like a family, with the ruler as a kind of father figure. And Rousseau says, nope, that doesn't work. That natural bond only exists while children actually need their father to survive. Once they're adults, any relationship is purely voluntary. It's a choice, a convention.
Okay, so what about just pure, raw power? If someone is strong enough to make you obey, does that give them the right to command you? Rousseau's answer is a hard no. Force is a physical thing. It can make you move, but it can never, ever create a moral duty in your conscience. It doesn't create a right, it just creates a practical problem that you have to deal with. And he has this brilliant example to illustrate the point. Think about it. If a bandit sticks a pistol in your face and demands your wallet, you're probably going to hand it over. But that's an act of necessity, right? Of simple self-preservation. You're certainly not morally obligated to do it. This whole idea of the right of the strongest is completely meaningless, because the second you get stronger or the bandit turns his back, that so-called right is gone. It was never a right to begin with. So, if legitimate authority can't come from nature, and it definitely can't come from brute force, where in the world does it come from? Well, this leads us to the very heart of his work, to Rousseau's truly revolutionary solution. He proposes something he calls the social pact. It's this foundational agreement that creates society itself. And at the core of this pact is a really radical idea: a total alienation. Every single person agrees to give up themselves and all of their rights, completely to the entire community. Now, I know that sounds incredibly extreme, but stick with me, because as we're about to see, the return on this investment is gigantic.
It's a trade, and in Rousseau's mind, it's a fantastic one. You surrender your chaotic, natural liberty, which really just means the freedom to grab whatever you're strong enough to take and hold, and in return, you get something far more valuable: civil liberty. This is true, protected freedom, a freedom that's secured by the laws and the full power of the community you just helped create.
And here it is. This is the solution to his original paradox. It's a bit of a mind-bender, but the logic is crucial, because every single person makes the exact same deal, giving themselves completely to the whole community. The conditions are exactly the same for everyone. So by giving yourself to everybody, you're not giving yourself to any one particular person. And since you're part of that community, making the rules, when you obey the law, you're really just obeying yourself. You remain as free as before. All right, so how does this new system actually work day to day? Well, this act of association, this social pact, it doesn't just create rules. It creates a new entity, a body politic.
When the people act together with a single unified voice, they form what Rousseau calls the sovereign. Now, this is so important. The sovereign is not a king. It's not a president or a parliament. The sovereign is the people themselves, acting as one. And its power is absolute, because it's nothing more than the collective power of every single member combined.
So this sovereign is guided by something Rousseau calls the general will. Now, this is probably the most important and, frankly, the most misunderstood concept in the entire book. You can think of it as the moral compass that always directs the state toward what's right. See, the general will is not what everybody personally wants at any given moment. That's what Rousseau calls the will of all, and it's basically just a messy, chaotic sum of everyone's private, selfish desires. The general will, on the other hand, is what is genuinely best for the community as a whole, for the long-term health and survival of the body politic itself.
And this brings us to another one of Rousseau's famous, mind-bending paradoxes. If someone refuses to obey the general will, let's say they refuse to pay taxes for a public road that benefits everyone, the community has the right to compel them. Rousseau says this is, literally, forcing them to be free. You're forcing them to be free from their own short-sighted, selfish impulses so they can enjoy the greater freedom of living in a secure, functioning society they agreed to join.
But hold on a second. If the people are the sovereign and they express the general will, then what's the government for? This is where Rousseau identifies what he sees as a permanent and totally unavoidable conflict right at the heart of any state.
According to Rousseau, the government, whether that's a king, a council, or elected officials, is nothing more than an agent, an employee of the sovereign people. Its one and only legitimate job is to execute the laws passed by the people, to carry out the general will. The government holds zero sovereign power of its own. It's just a hired hand.
But here's the massive problem. The government is also made up of people, and as a group, it starts to develop its own corporate will. It develops its own self-interest, and this corporate will is always, inevitably, going to be in a power struggle with the general will of the people. The government will always try to increase its own power, usually at the expense of the people's freedom.
Rousseau actually sees this as a natural, tragic life cycle for every state. He thinks it's an unstoppable process. The government is constantly pushing against the sovereign people. Over time, it grabs more and more power until eventually it breaks the social contract entirely. And at that moment, the state is dissolved. Society collapses and the people are thrown back into either a state of nature or worse, tyranny.
So this leaves us with a really profound challenge, one that is just as relevant, if not more so, today as it was 250 years ago. The social contract isn't some dusty document you sign once and forget about. No, it requires constant, active vigilance from all of its citizens. So the question Rousseau really leaves us with is this: how do we, the people, the true sovereign, make sure that our governments remain our employees and don't become our masters?